The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., just like every other Wednesday morning. Rebecca hit the snooze button twice before finally dragging herself out of bed. She had exactly 2 hours to get herself and her 7-year-old daughter Lily ready before the most important meeting of her career. No pressure, right? As the new CEO of a small tech company that was barely staying afloat, Rebecca knew today could make or break everything. 3 major investors were coming to hear her pitch. If they liked what they saw, the company would get the funding it desperately needed. If they didn't, well, she tried not to think about that possibility. She stumbled into the kitchen and started making breakfast. Toast, scrambled eggs, orange juice. The usual routine. Lily would be up soon, and Rebecca needed to have everything ready. Being a single mom meant she had become a master at juggling 1,000 things at once. Most days she pulled it off. Most days her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Maria, her neighbor who usually watched Lily after school and sometimes helped out with morning drop-offs. Rebecca's heart sank as she read the message. "So sorry, emergency. My mom fell and broke her hip. Flying to Florida this morning. Won't be able to watch Lily today or rest of week." Rebecca stared at the phone, her mind racing. Maria was her backup plan. Actually, Maria was pretty much her only plan. Lily's school didn't start until 9 and the investor meeting was at 8. She quickly scrolled through her contacts. Her sister lived 3 hours away. Her best friend from college had moved to Seattle last year. The other moms from Lily's school, she barely knew them well enough to ask for such a big favor. She called the only other person she could think of, her ex-husband, Lily's father. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Of course. He was probably already at his new job in another state, living his fresh start life without the complications of actually being a present parent. "Hey, sweetie, time to wake up," Rebecca said softly, pushing open Lily's bedroom door. The little girl was curled up under her unicorn blanket, her dark hair spread across the pillow. Lily opened one eye and smiled. "Is it school day?" "Yes, baby." "Come on, breakfast is ready." As Lily got dressed and ate her breakfast, Rebecca kept trying to think of solutions. She called 2 daycare centers, but neither had last-minute openings. She even considered calling in sick to the meeting. But her assistant had reminded her yesterday that the investors were flying in specifically for this. They'd been trying to schedule for 2 months. The clock was ticking. It was already 6:45. She needed to leave by 7:30 at the latest to get to the office, review her notes, and make sure the conference room was set up perfectly. "Mommy, you look worried," Lily said, chewing on her toast. "Kids always noticed everything." "I'm okay, honey. Just thinking about work stuff." "Is it the big meeting? The one you've been practicing for?" Rebecca nodded. For the past week, she'd been rehearsing her presentation every night after Lily went to bed. Sometimes Lily would sneak out and sit on the stairs, listening to her mom talk about educational software and market opportunities. Rebecca had even caught her playing business meeting with her stuffed animals once. An absolutely crazy idea started forming in Rebecca's mind. It was ridiculous. It was unprofessional. It could potentially ruin everything. But what other choice did she have? She looked at Lily, who was now carefully spreading jam on another piece of toast, completely unaware of her mother's dilemma. "Lily, honey, how would you feel about coming to Mommy's office today?" Lily's eyes lit up. "Really? To your actual office?" "Just for the morning. You'd have to be very, very quiet. Like a mouse." "Can you do that?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "I can be so quiet you won't even know I'm there." "I promise." Rebecca knew this was a terrible idea. You don't bring your 7-year-old to a meeting with potential investors. That's not how professional business works. But she was out of options, and the alternative was missing the meeting entirely. They got ready in record time. Rebecca put on her best navy suit, the one that made her feel confident and capable. She helped Lily pick out a nice dress, nothing too fancy, just something clean and presentable. As they drove to the office, Rebecca went over the rules. You'll sit in the corner of the conference room with your coloring books and your tablet. Headphones on if you want to watch something, but keep the volume low. Don't interrupt unless it's an emergency. "Can you do that for Mommy?" "I promise. I'll be invisible." Rebecca smiled despite her anxiety. "You could never be invisible, sweetheart. But very quiet works too." They arrived at the office at 7:45. The building was mostly empty, just a few early birds from the accounting department. Rebecca's assistant, Tom, was already there, setting up coffee and pastries in the conference room. "Morning, boss," he said cheerfully. Then he noticed Lily holding Rebecca's hand. His smile faltered slightly. "Oh, hey there, Lily, this is a surprise." "Childcare emergency," Rebecca said quietly. She's going to sit quietly in the corner during the meeting. She has activities to keep her busy. Tom's eyes widened, but to his credit, he didn't say anything negative. "Okay, well, let me grab an extra chair and set up a little spot for her." While Tom arranged a small area with a comfortable chair and a side table, Rebecca walked Lily through the conference room, showing her where she'd be sitting. It was in the back corner, away from the main table but still within eyesight, see? You'll have your own little office space. And if you need anything, you can give me a small wave, okay? Lily nodded solemnly. She seemed to understand how important this was. At 7:55, Rebecca's phone buzzed. The investors were in the lobby. Her stomach did a flip. This was it. She kissed Lily on the forehead and whispered, "Wish me luck." "You don't need luck, Mommy. You're the smartest person I know." Rebecca blinked back unexpected tears. How did kids always know exactly what to say? She straightened her blazer, took a deep breath, and walked toward the lobby to greet the three people who held her company's future in their hands. Behind her in that conference room sat her daughter with a box of crayons and a promise to stay quiet. As Rebecca shook hands with the investors and led them back down the hallway, making small talk about their flight and the weather, she couldn't help but think about how this was either going to be the biggest professional mistake of her life or somehow, impossibly work out just fine. Either way, there was no turning back now. Rebecca led the three investors into the conference room, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. The first investor was an older gentleman named Mr. Patterson, probably in his late 60s with silver hair and expensive-looking glasses. The second was a woman around 40 named Victoria Chen, sharply dressed in a gray suit that probably cost more than Rebecca's monthly rent. The third was a younger guy, maybe 35, named David something. She'd forgotten his last name in her nervousness. "Please have a seat," Rebecca said, gesturing to the chairs around the polished conference table. "Can I get anyone coffee, water?" As they settled in, making small talk and arranging their tablets and notebooks, Rebecca caught a glimpse of Lily in the corner. True to her word, her daughter had already pulled out her coloring books and was quietly organizing her crayons by color. Rebecca felt a surge of love and gratitude. Victoria noticed her glance and followed it to the corner. Her eyebrows raised slightly, but she didn't say anything. Rebecca felt her cheeks burn. This was already off to a great start. "Thank you all for coming today," Rebecca began, pulling up her presentation on the large screen. "I know you've flown in from different parts of the country, and I truly appreciate you taking the time to learn about what we're building here." For the next 20 minutes, Rebecca dove into her pitch. She talked about how their company created educational software that made learning fun for kids. She showed statistics about how traditional education was failing to engage students, especially in subjects like math and reading. She explained how their apps used game-based learning to keep children interested while actually teaching them real skills. The investors listened politely, but Rebecca could tell they weren't blown away. Victoria checked her phone twice. David stifled a yawn. Only Mr. Patterson seemed genuinely interested, nodding along and taking notes. Rebecca pressed on, talking about their user growth, their revenue projections, their plans for expansion. All the things she'd practiced 100 times. But somehow in this room, with these people staring at her, it all felt flat, like she was reading from a script that someone else had written. She was just getting to the financial projections when it happened. The sound of crayons scattering across the hardwood floor echoed through the quiet conference room like a thunderclap. Everyone turned to look at the corner where Lily sat, frozen, her eyes wide with horror. The entire box of crayons had tumbled off the side table and was now rolling in every direction across the floor. "I'm so sorry," Lily whispered, her voice small and terrified. Rebecca's face went hot. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. "It's okay, sweetheart. Just, pick them up quietly." She turned back to the investors, forcing a smile. "I apologize. My daughter, I had a childcare emergency this morning and—" "No need to explain," Victoria said coolly. "These things happen." But her tone suggested that these things really shouldn't happen in a professional business meeting. Rebecca wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. Where was I? Oh yes, the financial projections. "Excuse me," Mr. Patterson interrupted. He was looking at Lily with a kind expression. "What's your name, young lady?" Lily looked at her mother, unsure if she was allowed to speak. Rebecca nodded. "Lily," she said quietly. "I'm really sorry about the crayons. I didn't mean to interrupt." "That's quite all right," Mr. Patterson said, standing up. To Rebecca's surprise, he walked over to the corner and started helping Lily pick up the crayons. "I'm a bit clumsy myself. Just last week I knocked over an entire cup of coffee during a board meeting." Lily giggled, and Rebecca saw her daughter's shoulders relax. Mr. Patterson handed her a handful of crayons, and she carefully placed them back in the box. "What are you drawing there?" he asked, genuinely curious. Lily held up her picture. It was a colorful scene with stick figures of children sitting in front of tablets, big smiles on their faces. Above them she'd drawn a sun with rays of light spreading out in all directions. "That's really beautiful," Mr. Patterson said. "Tell me about it." "Well," Lily said, her confidence growing, "these are kids using learning apps, like the ones my mommy's company makes. See, they're happy because they don't even realize they're learning. They just think they're playing games." Rebecca stood there stunned. That was exactly the core message of her entire pitch. But somehow when Lily said it, it sounded so much simpler and more powerful. Victoria and David had both turned their chairs to watch the interaction. Victoria's expression had softened slightly. "And do you use apps like these?" Mr. Patterson asked, settling into the chair next to Lily. "Sometimes," Lily said. "My mommy has me test some of them. There's this one about fractions that's super fun. You have to divide pizza slices for different characters, and each one wants a different amount. I didn't even know I was learning fractions until my teacher said I was really good at them in class." Mr. Patterson looked impressed. "So you didn't realize you were learning?" "Nope," Lily said proudly. "That's the whole point. That's what Mommy always says. The best learning happens when kids are having so much fun they forget they're in school mode." David, the younger investor, leaned forward. "How old are you, Lily?" 7 3/4, she said seriously. "The 3/4 part is important," he laughed. "Of course it is. And what do you think makes a learning app good versus bad?" Lily thought about this for a moment, tapping her crayon against her chin. "Well, the bad ones feel like homework. They have boring stuff where you just click answers and it tells you if you're right or wrong. Those are yucky." Victoria smiled for the first time since entering the room. Yucky is a strong word, but it's true, Lily insisted. The good ones make you feel like you're on an adventure or solving a mystery. Like there's this reading app where you have to help characters escape from different situations by reading clues. My friend Tommy hates reading, but he plays that app all the time because he wants to see what happens next. Rebecca realized she was witnessing something incredible. Her daughter, with absolutely no business training or corporate jargon, was explaining their product's value proposition better than she had in 20 minutes of careful presentation. Mr. Patterson looked at Rebecca with new interest. "Do you regularly have children test your products?" Rebecca hesitated. "We've worked with educational consultants and child psychologists to develop age-appropriate content. We've done some focus groups with parents, but do actual kids test the apps?" Victoria pressed. "Kids like Lily here who can tell you exactly what's yucky and what's not." "We've had some limited testing," Rebecca admitted, "but it's been mostly conducted through formal research channels with controlled environments." "That sounds very official and very boring," David said, but he was smiling. "What if you just asked kids directly, like brought in a group of 7-year-olds and let them loose on your apps?" Lily bounced in her seat. "Oh, I could ask my friends from school. There's Amy and Tyler and Jordan and a bunch of other kids. We could have a meeting like this one, but with juice boxes instead of coffee." Everyone laughed, and Rebecca felt the entire energy in the room shift. What had been a tense, formal business meeting was suddenly feeling more like a conversation. "That's actually not a bad idea," Mr. Patterson said, standing up and returning to the conference table. "Rebecca, your presentation was solid. Your numbers are good. Your technology seems sound. But you know what was missing?" Rebecca shook her head. "Heart," he said simply. "You were showing us data and projections, but your daughter just showed us why this matters. She showed us the real impact." Victoria nodded slowly. "He's right. I've sat through 100 pitches this year from education tech companies. They all have the same graphs and the same buzzwords, but none of them talked about what actually makes kids excited to learn. My grandson is 9, Mr. Patterson said, settling back into his chair. Smart kid, but he struggles with math. Gets frustrated easily. His parents have tried tutors, workbooks, everything. Nothing sticks because he hates it before he even starts. He looked at Lily. But what you described, that pizza fraction game, he'd probably play that for hours without complaining once. Rebecca's mind was racing. The meeting had completely derailed from her carefully planned presentation, but somehow, it was going better than she could have imagined. I think, Victoria said slowly, we need to revisit our entire approach to this investment. Rebecca's heart sank. That sounded like investor speak for we're not interested. But then Victoria continued. Your pitch was asking for $3 million in funding for standard operations and growth. But what if we thought bigger? What if we created something really innovative here? David pulled out his laptop. What if we funded a complete overhaul of your testing and development process? Built out a real kids advisory panel, not just one-off focus groups. Kids could be involved from the beginning, Mr. Patterson added, his excitement building, not just testing finished products but helping shape what gets made in the first place. Rebecca could barely believe what she was hearing. They weren't backing out. They were expanding the vision. And it was all because of a spilled box of crayons and a 7-year-old's honest perspective. Lily sat in her corner, quietly coloring again, completely unaware that she'd just changed the entire direction of her mother's company. The conversation that followed was unlike any business meeting Rebecca had ever been part of. Instead of going through the rest of her prepared slides, the investors started asking questions that had nothing to do with quarterly projections or market share. They wanted to know about kids, real kids, what made them tick, what frustrated them, what excited them. Tell me something, Victoria said, leaning back in her chair and looking at Lily. When you're using an app and it's not working right or it's confusing, what do you do? Lily thought about this seriously. Well, if I can't figure it out in like 2 tries, I just close it and play something else. There are like 1 million apps, so why waste time on a boring one? 2 tries, David repeated, typing on his laptop. That's your window. 2 attempts before you lose them. What about rewards? Victoria asked. Do you like when apps give you points or badges? Depends, Lily said. If the badge is for something real, like actually finishing a hard level, then yeah, it feels good. But some apps give you badges for everything. Like just for opening the app or clicking a button. Those feel fake. Like when adults say good job for stuff that wasn't even hard. Mr. Patterson chuckled. She's got your number, Victoria. Your company's app gives out participation badges, doesn't it? Victoria made a face. We're redesigning that feature next quarter. Rebecca watched this exchange in amazement. Her daughter was casually delivering insights that market research firms charged thousands of dollars to discover, and she was doing it while coloring a rainbow. Lily, Rebecca said gently, can you tell them about your friend Tommy, the one who doesn't like reading? Lily nodded enthusiastically. Oh yeah, Tommy's in my class and he's really funny and good at soccer, but he hates reading, like really hates it. During reading time he just stares at the page and doesn't actually read. Our teacher gets frustrated with him. Why do you think he hates it? Mr. Patterson asked. Because the books we have to read in class are boring, Lily said matter-of-factly. They're about stuff like, I don't know, a girl who moves to a farm or whatever. Tommy likes dinosaurs and space and sharks, but there aren't any books about those things in our reading level bin. So it's not that he can't read, Victoria said slowly. It's that he's not interested in what he's being asked to read. Exactly, Lily said. But then my mommy showed him that app I mentioned. The one where you have to read clues to help the characters. And the characters are like astronauts and deep-sea divers and stuff. He played it for an hour straight. His mom called my mom and asked what magic spell she used because Tommy was actually reading on purpose. Rebecca remembered that phone call. Tommy's mother had been close to tears, saying it was the first time she'd seen her son engage with reading without a fight. That's the disconnect, David said, looking at Rebecca. Traditional education tries to force every kid into the same box. Same books, same pace, same topics. But kids aren't all the same. Right, Rebecca said, feeling more confident now. That's why our apps have multiple themes and storylines. A kid interested in dinosaurs can learn the exact same reading skills through a different narrative than a kid who likes princesses or robots. But do you know if that's actually what kids want? Victoria challenged. Or is that what adults think kids want? It was a fair question, and Rebecca had to admit the truth. Honestly, we made educated guesses based on popular toys and TV shows. We didn't ask kids directly. We should fix that, Mr. Patterson said. If we're going to do this investment, that needs to be part of the deal. Real input from real kids throughout the entire development process. Lily had stopped coloring and was listening to the conversation with interest. Can I say something? Everyone turned to her. Some of the apps my mommy's company makes are really good, but some of them feel like adults trying too hard to be cool. Like there's one with a character who's supposed to be a teenager, but she talks like someone's grandma trying to use teenager words. It's weird, Rebecca winced. She knew exactly which app Lily was talking about. They'd hired a writer in his 50s to create dialogue for a teenage character, and it showed. See, that's gold, David said. That's the kind of honest feedback you can't get from adult focus groups. Adults will be polite and say things like, the dialogue feels slightly inauthentic. Kids just tell you it's weird and move on. Do your friends at school use learning apps? Victoria asked Lily. Some do. The ones whose parents make them. But most kids play other games when they're on tablets. Like games that aren't educational at all. Why? Mr. Patterson asked. Lily shrugged. Because they're more fun? Like if I want to learn something, I guess an educational app is okay. But if I just want to have fun, I'd rather play something that doesn't feel like sneaky homework. Sneaky homework, Rebecca repeated. That's how kids see educational apps? Sometimes, Lily said. I mean, not all of them. Some are actually fun. But you can always tell when an app is trying to trick you into learning. It's like when you go to someone's house and they serve you vegetables but try to hide them in other food. You still know the vegetables are there. The room was quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed this. We've been thinking about this all wrong, Victoria said finally. We've been trying to make learning feel like play. But what if we just made genuinely good games that happen to teach things? Not educational games pretending to be fun, but actually fun games that have learning built in naturally? That's a much harder balance to strike, Rebecca admitted. We've tried, but it's difficult to satisfy both the kids who want pure entertainment and the parents who want clear educational value. Maybe that's because you're trying to satisfy the parents first, David suggested. What if you made apps that kids genuinely loved and then showed parents the data proving their kids were learning? My mom lets me play mommy's apps because she knows they're educational, Lily chimed in. But I play them because some of them are actually fun. The math one with the puzzles? That's just a good puzzle game. I forget it's teaching me math. Mr. Patterson stood up and walked to the window looking out at the city. You know what I think? I think we've been looking at the education technology market all wrong. We keep trying to disrupt schools and teachers and traditional learning, but maybe the real disruption is just listening to the actual students. He turned back to the room. My grandson's school has a student council. They meet once a month and discuss school issues. The kids bring up things the adults never think about, like how the bathroom door is too heavy for younger students, or how the lunch line setup makes everyone late to recess. Simple stuff, but important. You're suggesting a student council for app development, Rebecca said, the idea clicking into place. Not just a council, Victoria added, her eyes bright with excitement. A whole junior team. Kids who regularly test apps, give feedback, vote on new features, maybe even pitch their own ideas. We'd have to structure it carefully, David said, already typing notes. Parent permissions, limited time commitment so it doesn't interfere with school. Maybe make it fun with incentives and social aspects. Like a club, Lily said. A secret club where we get to test apps before anyone else sees them. That would be so cool, Rebecca's mind was spinning. An hour ago, she'd been giving a standard investor pitch, hoping for enough funding to keep the lights on for another year. Now they were talking about revolutionizing how educational apps were developed. This would require a significant increase in budget, Rebecca said cautiously. Recruiting kids, organizing regular sessions, actually implementing their feedback. It's a lot more than our original funding request. Mr. Patterson returned to his seat. What if we doubled the investment? $6 million instead of $3 million, but with the stipulation that a meaningful portion goes toward building this junior advisory program. Rebecca's breath caught. $6 million. That was more than she'd dared to dream. There's one condition, Victoria said, and Rebecca's heart sank slightly. There was always a condition. The first junior advisor has to be Lily. Lily's eyes went wide. Really, me? You've given us more valuable insights in the last 20 minutes than most consultants give us in months, Victoria said with a smile. Plus, you'll help us recruit other kids. They'll trust another kid more than they'll trust a bunch of adults in suits. Can I, Mommy? Lily asked, practically bouncing in her seat. Please? Rebecca looked at her daughter's excited face, then at the three investors who were all nodding encouragingly. This morning she'd been terrified that bringing Lily to work would ruin her career. Instead, her daughter had somehow become the key to everything. "I think we can make that work," Rebecca said, her voice thick with emotion. "Excellent," Mr. Patterson said, extending his hand. "I think we have the framework for a deal. Let's get our lawyers to draft something up this week." As they all shook hands and exchanged contact information, Rebecca kept glancing at Lily, who had returned to her coloring but couldn't keep the huge grin off her face. The meeting wrapped up 30 minutes later. As Rebecca walked the investors to the elevator, Tom appeared with wide eyes. "So?" he whispered. "How did it go?" "I heard talking but couldn't make out what was happening." "I think," Rebecca said slowly, "we just got $6 million in funding, and it's all because of a 7-year-old with a box of crayons." Tom blinked. "Wait, what?" Rebecca just laughed. She wasn't entirely sure she believed it either. The elevator doors closed on the 3 investors, and Rebecca stood in the lobby for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. $6 million, a complete redesign of their development process, and her daughter was somehow at the center of it all. "Mommy," Lily called from down the hallway. She'd stayed back in the conference room. "Can we go home now?" "I'm hungry." Rebecca checked her watch. It was only 10:30 in the morning, but it felt like an entire week had passed since breakfast. "Yeah, sweetheart. Let's get out of here." As they packed up Lily's coloring supplies, Tom appeared in the doorway, still looking confused. "Okay, you have to explain what happened in there," he said. "The investors came out looking happier than when they went in, which literally never happens. And I heard something about Lily joining the team." Rebecca gave him the quick version while helping Lily put on her jacket. With every sentence, Tom's expression shifted from confused to amazed to slightly amused. "So your childcare emergency turned into the best business decision of the year," he said finally. "That's the most ridiculous and wonderful thing I've ever heard." "Tell me about it," Rebecca said. "I'm still not entirely sure it was real." "It was real," Tom assured her. "Mr. Patterson's assistant already emailed me about setting up a follow-up call next week. They want to fast-track the paperwork." Over the next few days, everything moved incredibly quickly. The investors' lawyers drew up contracts. Rebecca's small legal team reviewed everything carefully. There were video calls and conference calls and about 1 million emails, but underlying all the business logistics was something more interesting. The investors were genuinely excited about the junior advisory program. Victoria called Rebecca on Thursday afternoon. "I've been thinking about this nonstop," she said. "I mentioned the idea to my partners and they're all in. We want to potentially roll this model out to other education companies in our portfolio. If it works as well as we think it will, this could change the entire industry." "No pressure," Rebecca joked, though her stomach tightened with nerves. "How's Lily feeling about being our first junior advisor?" Victoria asked. "She's been asking me about it every single day," Rebecca admitted. "Yesterday she made a presentation for me using her stuffed animals as the audience. She had charts and everything. Well, they were crayons on paper, but still." Victoria laughed. "That's perfect. Listen, I know we talked about recruiting other kids, but I've been thinking about how to do this right. We can't just randomly ask parents if we can borrow their children for app testing. We need a real strategy." "I agree," Rebecca said. "I was actually up late last night thinking about the same thing. What if we started with Lily's school? Worked with the teachers and the principal to create some kind of after-school program?" "That's exactly what I was thinking," Victoria said. "Educational partnership, proper permissions, everything above board. Plus, teachers could help us identify students who might benefit most from different learning approaches." They talked for another 20 minutes, brainstorming ideas. By the end of the call, Rebecca had a page full of notes and a growing sense that this was actually going to happen. That evening, after Lily had finished her homework and was getting ready for bed, Rebecca sat down with her for a serious conversation. "So, you know how Mr. Patterson and the other investors want you to help with the company?" Rebecca began. Lily nodded eagerly, sitting cross-legged on her bed in her pajamas. "Well, that's going to be a real job, not like a pretend job. You'll have to test apps and give honest opinions and help us recruit other kids to join the junior advisory team." "I know," Lily said. "I've been thinking about it a lot." "And you're okay with that?" "It won't be all fun and games. Sometimes testing apps means using ones that aren't very good and having to explain why they're not good." Lily was quiet for a moment, twisting the edge of her blanket between her fingers. "Mommy, can I tell you something?" "Of course, baby, always. Sometimes at school we have to use apps that the teacher picks and they're really boring. But we're not allowed to say they're boring because that would be rude. We just have to pretend we like them and do the work." Rebecca nodded, encouraging her to continue. "But if I could tell someone that an app is boring and they would actually listen and maybe make it better, that would be really cool, because then maybe other kids wouldn't have to pretend either." Rebecca felt tears prick her eyes. Her daughter understood more than she'd given her credit for. "You're going to be amazing at this," Rebecca said, pulling Lily into a hug. The following Monday, Rebecca had a meeting with the principal at Lily's school, Mrs. Rodriguez. She'd been the principal for 15 years and had a reputation for being supportive of innovative programs, but also protective of her students' well-being. "Let me make sure I understand," Mrs. Rodriguez said, leaning back in her desk chair. "You want to create an after-school program where students test educational apps and provide feedback?" "That's the basic idea, yes," Rebecca said. "But it would be much more structured than it sounds. Parental permission for everything, limited time commitment, compensated either through payment to the families or perhaps educational scholarships, and completely voluntary. How many students are you thinking?" "We'd like to start with maybe 10 to 15 kids from different grades. 3rd through 6th probably. Different learning levels, different interests, different backgrounds. We want diverse perspectives." Mrs. Rodriguez tapped her pen against her desk, thinking, "You know, I'm actually intrigued by this. We're always looking for ways to engage students outside of traditional classroom settings. And if this helps improve the educational technology that students use anyway, that's valuable." "Exactly," Rebecca said, relieved that the principal seemed open to the idea. "But I have some conditions," Mrs. Rodriguez continued. "First, the teachers need to be involved. If you're recruiting students, their teachers should have input. They know which kids might thrive in this kind of program." "Absolutely," Rebecca agreed. "Second, this can't interfere with academics. If a student's grades start slipping because they're spending too much time on your program, they're out. That's fair." "And third," Mrs. Rodriguez said, fixing Rebecca with a serious look, "I want regular reports on what you're learning from these kids, not identifying information about specific students, but general insights. If you're discovering things about how children learn through this program, I want our teachers to benefit from that knowledge." Rebecca hadn't expected that, but it made perfect sense. "That's actually a wonderful idea. We could even do workshops for teachers based on what we learn." "Now you're talking," Mrs. Rodriguez said with a smile. "All right, I'm in. Let's set up a presentation for interested parents. Maybe next month?" Rebecca left the school feeling lighter than she had in months. Everything was falling into place. Over the next few weeks, Rebecca and her team worked on creating a proper structure for the junior advisory program. They developed parent permission forms, drafted a code of conduct, designed a schedule that wouldn't overwhelm the kids, and created a point system where junior advisors could earn rewards for their participation. Victoria flew in from New York to help with the parent information session. She brought David with her, and together they presented to a room full of curious and slightly skeptical parents. "I know this sounds unconventional," Victoria said, standing at the front of the school cafeteria, where 30 parents had gathered, "asking your children to essentially work for a tech company. But I want to be very clear about what this actually is." She explained the program in detail. The kids would meet twice a month for about 90 minutes. They'd test apps that were in development, play games, and have group discussions about what worked and what didn't. Everything would be on site at the school, supervised by both company staff and school personnel. No personal information would be collected, and parents could withdraw their children at any time. "The goal isn't to get free labor from kids," David added. "The goal is to make better educational products by actually listening to the people who use them. We've been making apps for children based on what we adults think children want." "That's backwards," a father in the back raised his hand. "What's the compensation?" "Each participating student will receive a $50 payment per session," Victoria said. "That money goes directly to the families to use however they choose. Additionally, the company is establishing an education scholarship fund. A portion of every app sale will go into this fund, and participating junior advisors will have preferred access to scholarships for college or trade schools." A mother near the front spoke up. "My son has ADHD. Would he be able to participate?" "He has trouble sitting still for long periods." "Absolutely. Rebecca said, stepping forward. In fact, we specifically want kids with different learning styles and needs. Your son's perspective would be incredibly valuable. If he needs movement breaks or fidget tools during sessions, we'll provide them. Another parent asked, "What if my daughter isn't good with technology?" Even better, David said. We need to know when our apps are confusing or not intuitive. Someone who's already tech-savvy might miss problems that a less experienced user would catch immediately. The questions continued for another 30 minutes. Some parents were enthusiastic right away. Others were more cautious, wanting time to think it over. A few were openly skeptical, worried about screen time or commercialization of childhood. Mrs. Rodriguez stood up to address that last concern. I had the same worries initially, she said. But after reviewing the program details and talking extensively with Rebecca and her team, I believe this is different. These children won't be passive consumers. They'll be active participants with real voices. That's actually quite empowering. By the end of the evening, 23 families had signed up for more information. Rebecca needed 10 to 15 kids to start. She was overwhelmed by the response. That night, driving home with Lily asleep in the back seat, Rebecca reflected on how much had changed in just a few weeks. A disastrous childcare emergency had turned into a $6 million investment and a completely new direction for her company. All because she'd had no choice but to bring her daughter to work, and Lily had accidentally spilled a box of crayons. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs came from the most unexpected places. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Patterson. My grandson wants to know if he can join your junior advisory program. He lives in Boston, but he's willing to video call in for sessions. Says his grandpa told him about the coolest opportunity ever. Rebecca smiled and texted back, "Let's make it happen." The program was growing before it had even officially started, and somehow Rebecca knew this was just the beginning. The first official junior advisory meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday afternoon in late October. Rebecca had barely slept the night before, running through everything that could go wrong. What if the kids were bored? What if they didn't give useful feedback? What if the parents decided this was a terrible idea after all? Lily, on the other hand, was completely calm. She'd helped Rebecca set up the school library where the meeting would take place, arranging chairs in a circle and setting out snacks on a corner table. "Mommy, you need to relax," Lily said, sounding far too mature for 7 years old. "It's going to be fine. Kids like talking about stuff when adults actually listen." "When did you get so wise?" Rebecca asked, hugging her daughter. "I've always been wise. You just notice it more now." By 3:30, 12 kids filed into the library. Lily had helped recruit most of them from her school. There was Tommy, the boy who hated reading; Amy, a quiet 4th grader who loved science; Jordan, a 6th grader who wanted to be a game designer; Marcus, a 3rd grader with dyslexia; and 8 others, each with their own interests and personalities. Rebecca had also invited 2 teachers to observe and help facilitate, and Victoria had flown in again from New York, bringing David with her. "Okay, everyone," Rebecca said once the kids were settled. "Thank you for being here. This is the first ever meeting of the junior advisory team, and you all are pioneers." "Does anyone know what a pioneer is?" "Someone who does something first," Jordan said. "Exactly. You're going to help us figure out how to make learning apps that kids actually want to use. Not what adults think kids want. What you actually want. Can we be honest?" Tommy asked. "Like really honest? Even if it might hurt someone's feelings?" "Especially then," Victoria said. "We need honest feedback. If something is boring or confusing or just bad, we need to know. You won't hurt our feelings. You'll be helping us improve." "Okay, good," Tommy said. "Because a lot of apps are really bad, and I've always wanted to tell someone." The room erupted in giggles, and Rebecca felt herself relax slightly. Tommy was exactly the kind of honest voice they needed. They started the session by having each kid talk about their favorite game or app and why they liked it. The answers were revealing. Some kids liked apps with stories. Others wanted competition and leaderboards. A few just enjoyed pretty graphics and satisfying sound effects. "I like games where you can customize your character," Amy said. "It makes it feel like it's actually mine, you know? Like I made something." "I get bored if it's too easy," Jordan added. "It needs to be challenging, but not so hard that you want to throw your tablet across the room." Marcus spoke quietly, his voice almost a whisper. "I like when apps read the text out loud. Sometimes reading is hard for me, and when I can hear it, I understand better." Rebecca made notes on everything. These weren't insights you could get from market research. These were real kids explaining their real experiences. Then came the main activity. Rebecca's team had prepared 3 different prototype apps, each teaching the same math concepts but in different ways. The kids would test all 3 and then vote on which one they liked best. The first app was traditional. You were given math problems to solve, and if you got them right, a cartoon character did a little dance. Wrong answers got a sad face. "This is boring," Jordan announced within 2 minutes. "It's just homework with a dancing bear." "Agreed," Tommy said. Next, the second app was more game-like. You had to solve math problems to help a character jump across platforms. Get the answer right and you jumped successfully. Get it wrong and you fell. "Better," Amy said. "But it's stressful. I don't like feeling like I'm going to fail if I make a mistake." "I like it," Jordan said. "The pressure makes it exciting." The kids were split on that one. Some liked the challenge. Others found it anxiety-inducing. The third app took a completely different approach. You were running a virtual pet shop, and you had to use math to figure out how much food to buy, how to split costs, how to price items. The math was embedded in the story naturally. "Wait, I've been doing math this whole time?" Marcus asked after playing for 10 minutes. "I didn't even notice." "That's the point," Lily said proudly. She'd tested this app before and loved it. "I like this one," Amy said. "It doesn't feel like school. It feels like playing pretend." When they took a vote, the Pet Shop app won by a landslide. Only Jordan preferred the platform jumping game, and even he admitted the Pet Shop version was pretty good. "Okay, here's my question," Victoria said, addressing the group. "The Pet Shop app took our team 3 times as long to develop as the other 2. Is it worth it? Would you actually choose to play it at home, when you could play any game you want?" The kids looked at each other, having a silent conversation. Finally, Tommy spoke up. "Here's the thing. If my mom tells me I have to do math practice for 20 minutes, I'm going to be mad about it no matter what. But if she says I can have screen time and the Pet Shop app is one of the options, I might actually pick it. The other ones feel like punishment." "That's exactly what we needed to know," David said, typing rapidly on his laptop. "It's not about making educational apps that trick kids into learning. It's about making apps that are genuinely good enough to compete with entertainment apps." The meeting continued for another hour. They tested a reading app next and the kids absolutely tore it apart. "The characters talk weird," Lily said. "The story doesn't make sense," Amy added. "Why would a detective need help solving a mystery from random kids reading clues?" "Just call the police. And the rewards are pointless," Jordan said. "Who cares about collecting digital badges? They don't do anything." Rebecca watched her team members taking notes frantically. This was brutal, but it was also incredibly valuable. Adults had spent weeks developing that app and kids had identified its major flaws in minutes. "Okay," Rebecca said. "If you could redesign this app from scratch, what would you do?" The kids got excited then, talking over each other with ideas. They wanted choices that actually mattered. They wanted consequences for decisions. They wanted characters who felt like real people, not cardboard cutouts. They wanted rewards that unlocked new content, not just meaningless achievements. "We should be able to create our own mysteries," Jordan suggested. "Like make them for our friends to solve." "Oh," Amy's eyes lit up. "And there could be different difficulty levels so younger kids could play too." Even the quiet kids started contributing ideas. Marcus suggested that the app could have a dyslexia-friendly mode with special fonts and color options. Another girl named Sophie wanted the ability to play with friends in real time, solving mysteries together. By the time the session ended at 5 o'clock, Rebecca had 10 pages of notes and her development team had a completely new direction for the reading app. As the kids packed up their things and headed out with their parents, Mr. Patterson's grandson connected via video call from Boston. "How'd it go?" he asked eagerly. "Did they like the apps?" "They destroyed them, actually," Victoria said with a laugh. "In the best possible way." Over the next 3 months, the junior advisory team met 6 more times. Each session brought new insights. The kids tested apps, gave feedback, pitched ideas, and slowly but surely, the entire development process at Rebecca's company transformed. The developers learned to create prototypes quickly and test them with kids early. Before investing too much time in bad concepts, the writers learned to run dialogue past the advisory team to make sure it sounded natural. The designers learned which visual styles kids actually liked, as opposed to which styles adults thought were kid-friendly. But something else was happening too. The kids themselves were changing. Tommy, who'd started the program barely able to sit still for a full session, was now leading discussions and taking notes. Amy had come out of her shell and was confidently presenting ideas to the whole group. Marcus had stopped apologizing for his dyslexia and started teaching the team about how their apps could be more accessible for kids with different learning needs. And Lily, Rebecca's daughter, who'd accidentally started this whole thing with a spilled box of crayons, had become something of a junior CEO herself. She helped organize the meetings, welcomed new members, and even started doing practice presentations at home about what the team had learned. One evening in January, 6 months after that fateful investor meeting, Rebecca was working late in her office when Victoria called. "You sitting down?" Victoria asked. "Yes, why?" "The pet shop app, the one your junior advisors helped redesign. It launched 2 weeks ago." "I know," Rebecca said. "We've been monitoring the numbers." "Well, the numbers just got very interesting. It's the #2 educational app in the App Store." "#2? Do you know how rare that is for a small company?" Rebecca pulled up the App Store on her computer. Victoria was right. Their little app, developed with input from 12 kids meeting in a school library, was beating out products from companies with budgets 100 times larger. "There's more," Victoria continued. "We're getting emails from parents saying their kids are asking to play it. Not being forced to play it, asking for it. And teachers are reaching out wanting to use it in classrooms." Rebecca felt tears streaming down her face. "We did it. The kids did it, they sure did. And Rebecca, we want to expand the program. My partners and I have been talking. We want to launch junior advisory teams at 5 more schools across the country. Are you ready for that?" Rebecca looked around her office. On the wall, she'd framed Lily's crayon drawing from that first meeting, the one with the stick-figure children smiling at their tablets. Next to it was a photo from the junior advisory team's first session, all 12 kids grinning at the camera. "Yeah," Rebecca said. "I think we're ready." That weekend, Rebecca took Lily out for ice cream to celebrate. As they sat in the booth, Lily swinging her legs and working on a chocolate sundae, Rebecca felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "You know that morning when Maria couldn't watch you?" Rebecca said. "When I had to bring you to the investor meeting?" "The day I spilled the crayons," Lily said, grinning. "I was so scared. I thought bringing you would ruin everything." "But it didn't," Lily said simply. "No, it didn't. It made everything better." "You made everything better?" Lily thought about this while eating a spoonful of ice cream. "Mommy, I think maybe sometimes the bad things that happen are actually good things in disguise. We just can't see it yet." Rebecca smiled through tears. "When did you get so smart?" "I told you. I've always been smart. You're just paying attention now." Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Rebecca sat at her kitchen table with a cup of tea, reflecting on everything that had happened. A childcare emergency had turned into a business breakthrough. A spilled box of crayons had led to a $6 million investment.